There is a strange and unsettling silence when the narcissist realizes their power over you has vanished. The familiar tricks, the false charm, the subtle manipulations, all of them suddenly lose their effect. But this is not the silence of peace. It is the stillness before the storm, the pause, when a predator recalculates its next strike. Carl Jung once said, "What we deny will eventually return to us as fate." And for the narcissist, when the mask can no longer hide the truth, the shadow within erupts with force. At the very moment you become the mirror, reflecting reality, they no longer see you as a source of supply, but as a threat. They will not give up, they will escalate. And in order to survive, they will unleash their final tactics, the most dangerous, the most desperate. This is no longer a game of affection, it is a battle for control. In this video, we will expose the last moves a narcissist often uses when their power slips away, so that you no longer play the role of victim in their performance, but instead step into the role of conscious observer. Stay with me until the end, because each tactic you're about to learn will not only help you recognize the narcissist more clearly, but also strengthen your boundaries and inner power. And if this is your first time here, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss upcoming healing insights and deep analysis from Carl Jung's perspective. Because the journey of understanding and escaping the narcissistic cycle is not easy, but you no longer have to walk it alone. When the mask loses its effect, the narcissist begins to reveal their true nature. And it is precisely then that they enter their most dangerous stage, unleashing their final moves. If once charm and sweetness were their weapons to draw you back, now desperation and rage become the tools with which they try to cling to collapsing power. The first tactic they often use is playing the victim. Don't be surprised if they show up in front of your family, friends, or colleagues looking weak, pitiful, and broken. They will tell a completely different story. That they loved with all their heart, that they sacrificed everything, while you, the one who endured the real wounds, are painted as ungrateful and cruel. This is not just a lie. It is an alternate universe they construct, a parallel reality where they are the good one and you are the betrayer. Ends 20. The goal of this performance is very clear: to isolate you from your support system. They believe that if they can turn family and friends against you, you will feel lonely, lost, and eventually return to them to escape despair. This is a sophisticated attack on honor, not aimed directly at your heart, but at your social network. Carl Jung once described the persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted. For the narcissist, the victim role is the perfect persona to win sympathy from others and bury the truth. And when you begin to see through that act, they shift to another tactic, creating the illusion that they have changed. After a period of silence, they reappear, claiming to be awakened, to have gone to therapy, to have read stacks of books, even to have found spiritual light. They apologize with the very words you once longed to hear. But if you look closely, you'll notice this is only a new script, another disguise. They change their lines, but their essence, their shadow, remains untouched. The trap lies in your own hope. You want to believe that people can change, that your love and patience were not wasted. But in reality, this supposed change only exists to make you lower your boundaries, to open the door for the old cycle to repeat. And this time, often with more cruelty than before. When the narcissist realizes the old tricks no longer work, they enter the most dangerous stage, a stage where control no longer comes from strength, but from desperation. And in that desperation, they do not retreat. Instead, they escalate, trying every way to turn the situation around. This is when you will witness their final moves tactics, both cunning and dramatic, that without clarity can easily drag you back into the cycle. Carl Jung once warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." For the narcissist, this shadow is emptiness, the fear of abandonment, and the feeling of worthlessness. When they lose power over you, that shadow rises violently, and they must find every possible way to avoid facing it. The tactics they use are not just attempts to keep you, but desperate efforts to conceal the terror within themselves. The first of these tactics is transforming into the victim. You'll see them shed tears in front of friends, family, even co-workers. They'll tell the story that they loved wholeheartedly, gave everything, and in return only received your ingratitude and coldness. Lines like, "I don't know what I did wrong," or "I sacrificed everything for them and still they abandoned me," will be repeated again and again. This is not just a simple lie, it is a parallel reality they create, where they are the pitiable protagonist and you are the betrayer. They know society sympathizes with the weak, so they use that image as their shield. Jung called this the persona, the social mask. And for the narcissist, the role of the victim is the perfect persona to gain sympathy and isolate you. The ultimate goal is to strip you of your support system, so that in your deepest loneliness you return to them not out of love, but because you cannot endure isolation. This is the most insidious psychological strike, exploiting the human need for connection to set a trap. And when the victim act no longer works, they move to the next tactic, pretending to have changed. After a period of silence, they return with a new image claiming to have gone to therapy, to have read books, to have found spirituality, to be enlightened, and to have understood everything. They speak the apologies you always longed to hear, offering sweet promises of a better future. In reality, this is only a memorized performance. They have not changed their essence, only their script, swapping masks to play the role of the awakened one. Hey, the trap lies in your own hope, the hope that love can heal, that people can truly change. But Jung made it clear. Real transformation does not come from reading a few books, but from facing and integrating one's shadow. The narcissist does not do this. They are simply playing a new role. With you as the audience they seek to win over. Once you believe and lower your boundaries, the old cycle returns, usually harsher than before. They have not changed their soul. They have only changed their costume. If the previous tactics fail, they will begin using the people you love as pawns. They call your mother, whispering that they are worried about you, that you are not doing well. They reach out to close friends, asking them to talk some sense into you. Sometimes they even use children as a bridge. This is the flying monkey's strategy, turning your loved ones into extensions of their manipulation. Under the guise of concern, they plant seeds of doubt, making those you trust most apply pressure on you. The home that was once safe becomes a battlefield. You are forced to defend yourself, to explain to people who have no understanding of what you have endured. This is how the narcissist attacks without lifting a finger. They simply sow suspicion and let others do the rest. On the next level, they manipulate memory itself. Gaslighting is familiar, but now they escalate it into rewriting the past. They tell you the relationship was once happy, that the pain you remember was only an illusion, that if arguments happened, it was all your fault. They might even post old happy pictures on social media to reinforce this alternative truth. This is a direct attack on your mental foundation. When you start asking yourself, maybe I exaggerated, maybe I was wrong, you are already being pulled back into the cycle. Jung once said, "A memory that is denied does not disappear. It will return as a ghost to haunt us." The narcissist knows this, so they turn your real memories into ghosts, blurring the line between real and false. And when you can no longer trust your own perception, they can easily control your present. Another cunning tactic is the apology trap. You may suddenly receive a message. "That night I was wrong. I'm sorry for hurting you." This could be exactly what you longed to hear for years. When it comes, you feel relief, even a sense of victory. But that apology comes without change. It is only a key testing the lock. They want to see if the door to your heart is still open. If you respond even with a short "thank you," they know they still have a string tied to you. From that single reply, the entire cycle restarts. True apology is not words, but change. And with the narcissist, action never follows words. Once they realize you've broken free, that you're healing and beginning to tell the truth, they may launch a full-scale smear campaign. No more fake tears, but vicious accusations. You are a liar, a failure, unstable, unfit even as a parent. They may attack your career, your reputation, your character. This is their scorched earth policy. If they can't keep you, they will destroy everything. In the narcissist's mind, if they cannot have you, they will ensure no one else wants you either. This is no longer about love. It is the revenge of the shadow. Rage born from watching you free and happy while they remain trapped in their own darkness. Finally, they use calculated disappearance. At first glance, their silence may seem like a blessing, but silence too is a weapon. They block you, vanish from sight, creating the illusion that it's all over. You exhale, you begin to heal, you rebuild your life. Then, at your most peaceful moment, they reappear with a short message. I just thought of you. This is intermittent reinforcement. Their silence was never to give you peace, but to lower your guard. And when you least expect it, a single message awakens every memory, every emotion. The moment you respond, they win not because they've regained you, but because they've proven they still have power over your heart. The common thread in all these tactics is that none of them aim at love, they aim at power. The narcissist does not fight to win you back, they fight to maintain the illusion that they still control your life. When you recognize this, when you see these moves as the desperate scripts of a flailing shadow, you step out of the role. You are no longer a character in their story, you become the awakened observer. That is the very moment Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, no longer defined by others, but living fully from your true self. Looking deeply at these final tactics, we see that every move, every ploy, arises from a single root fear, the fear of losing power. For them, love is not soul connection, it is an invisible contract, where they hold the control and you supply the energy. When that cord is cut, they spiral into panic. It is this panic that drives them to do anything to hold on, no matter how twisted or toxic. What makes you vulnerable in this stage is the conflict within yourself. On one hand, you long for freedom. On the other, your wounds are still raw and doubt still lingers. This is the weakness they exploit. They know that planting just a little doubt, a little fragile hope, can reopen the door you've closed. That's why every tactic, from victimhood to false change to selective apologies, is designed to strike at the unhealed spaces in you. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In the relationship with a narcissist, that darkness is the confusion between truth and illusion, between love and power, between hope and despair. As long as you fail to see that their actions are not care or affection, but the behaviors of a soul in panic, you risk mistaking performance for love. But once you see the truth, you realize it was all theater, a desperate attempt to escape their own shadow, the emptiness they will never face. Perhaps the cruelest of these final tactics is when they turn memory itself into a weapon, when they rewrite history, when they claim that all the terrible things existed only in your imagination. They are not only denying responsibility, they are attacking the very foundation of your perception. They want you to doubt yourself, so that in the midst of that chaos, you reach out to them as an anchor, yet that very anchor is the same place that once pulled you down. This is one of the most dangerous manipulations, because it leaves you disoriented, unable to trust your own memories or emotions. And when you lose trust in yourself, you become far more vulnerable to falling back into their grip. On another level, the smear campaign is the clearest reflection of the shadow. For within the narcissist's shadow lies envy, bitterness, and the terror of being forgotten. When you break free, they see in you something they can never attain: freedom. And that very freedom drives them mad. It compels them to destroy your image in the eyes of others. They spread rumors, plant doubts, even invent malicious accusations. But through Jung's lens, you see the truth. They are not truly fighting you, they are fighting their own shadow. They cannot bear to see you as the mirror that reflects their helplessness. And finally, when all else fails, they vanish. But this disappearance is not liberation, it is a calculated psychological tactic. They know how easily humans are affected by intermittent reinforcement, when presence and absence intertwine to create emotional shock. Prolonged silence makes you wonder, maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe I was too harsh. And at the moment of your greatest vulnerability, they reappear. A short text, a casual check-in is enough to shake the foundation you worked so hard to rebuild. That is the power of interruption. It prevents full closure, always leaving a crack through which they might return. Yet it is precisely in these moments that your greatest opportunity for growth emerges. When you recognize these final moves, you are no longer a participant in the play, you become the observer. You see every role, every mask, every tactic, and once you see clearly, they lose their power. This is the turning point of individuation, the process Jung described, where you step out of definitions imposed by others and live rooted in your true self. Instead of collapsing under the pain of their slander, you learn to stand firmly in your own truth. Instead of being softened by belated apologies, you recognize the fabrication behind them. Instead of being shaken by calculated disappearances, you use the silence to heal. Every tactic they deploy, once exposed, becomes a lesson for you. Rather than dragging you down, it elevates you, helping you understand yourself, your boundaries, and your inner strength more deeply. In the end, these final moves are not the end of you, they are the end of them, of the power they once held. When you are no longer swept into the cycle, when you witness everything as a conscious spectator, you have reclaimed your freedom. And that is the narcissist's greatest fear, not losing you, but losing the ability to control you. When you see through all of these tactics, you uncover an essential truth. They were never signs of love, but symptoms of desperation. The narcissist is not fighting to keep you because they cherish you, but because they fear losing the mirror that props up their distorted ego. In their eyes, you were never a human being with a heart and feelings. You were a supply, an energy source to cover the rising shadow within them. And once you cut off that supply, they no longer know who they are, nor how to maintain the mask. Every tactic they deploy, from playing the victim, creating the illusion of change, turning your loved ones into tools, rewriting the past, offering selective apologies, to launching smear campaigns or calculated disappearances, serves the same purpose: to keep you trapped within their control. But once you recognize their true nature, these maneuvers reveal themselves as repetitive performances, predictable, hollow, and powerless. You begin to see that they no longer hold the influence they once did. Carl Jung emphasized, "What we deny will rule us from the shadows." For the narcissist, that shadow is the fear of abandonment, the envy, the helplessness of not being able to sustain their ego on their own. And when they resort to these final tactics to control you, they are in truth trying to control their own shadow, a battle they can never win. For you, if you remain aware, this is the turning point of transformation. You no longer play the role they scripted, but instead step into the position of conscious observer. You realize that true strength does not come from beating them at their own game, but from refusing to play it all together. You rebuild your boundaries, stand firm in your truth, and learn to distinguish between false light and the hidden darkness it tries to conceal. At that moment, each of their last tactics ceases to be a trap and instead becomes evidence of your liberation. For it is only when they have lost all power that they become desperate enough to use these final moves. Rather than fearing them, you can see these tactics as confirmation that you are on the right path. The truth is simple. The more peaceful you are, the more unsettled they become. The freer you are, the more chaotic they grow. And that is the deepest victory, not in changing the narcissist, but in breaking free from their shadow. This marks the beginning of a new journey, one where you step out of the performance, no longer governed by illusions, and live fully in the authenticity of your true self. As we reach the end of this journey, one truth becomes clear, though often hidden. The final tactics a narcissist unleashes are not proof of their strength, but evidence of their deepest helplessness. They can no longer keep you under control, no longer sustain the illusion of power, and what remains is nothing more than a desperate performance, clinging to a role that has already collapsed. This also means that if you are witnessing these tactics, you've already come a very long way on the path to freedom. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by denying the darkness, but by making the darkness conscious." The narcissist flees from their own shadow through layers of masks and repetitive tricks. But you are different. You are learning to face the truth that love is not control, that unconditional sacrifice does not equal happiness, that your worth is not defined by how others treat you. And by doing so, you are not only stepping out of the narcissistic cycle, you are stepping into a new journey, the path of freedom and individuation. You don't need to win at their game, because true victory comes when you refuse to play it. Every time you uphold your boundaries, every time you choose silence over reaction, every time you place your peace above their illusions, you affirm, "I am no longer defined by someone else's shadow." That is a power no narcissist can ever touch. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. There are countless others who have been, are, and will go through the same experience. By sharing your story, you not only liberate yourself, but also become a source of strength for those still trapped. Community is a vital part of healing. It reminds us that truth cannot remain hidden forever, and light will always find a way through. If this video has helped you better understand the narcissist's final tactics and how they reveal their helplessness, take a moment to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Not only will this ensure you don't miss future insights, but it also motivates us to continue creating in-depth, healing content through the lens of Carl Jung's psychology. And don't forget, leave a comment below. You don't need to share every detail, just note whether you've ever seen or experienced any of these tactics. By speaking up, you not only affirm your own truth, but you also help others in this community feel less alone. Keep walking forward. Keep choosing peace for yourself, because that is the one victory a narcissist can never take away. And your journey, the journey of reclaiming yourself, is the story that truly deserves to be continued.